throats because the point is for life.
Over the years of working towards the goal of producing 50% of my own calories, I've recognized that there are two categories of activities that add to the spreadsheet. On one end, we have things like chicken eggs, greens from the garden, foraged foods, or small game. These ingredients come in at a steady but low impact pace. On the other end, we have things like potato harvests, maple syrup, acorn processing, or large game hunting that make a sudden and drastic impact towards the goal. The second half of February included the first instance of a significant jump on the sheet. Wild hogs in the US are feral versions of domesticated hogs that have escaped, or been purposefully released, over the last few hundred years. They're common in many parts of the southern half of the country and are a major issue for farms and ranches due to the ecological and infrastructure damage that they can cause. In many states, since they're invasive, they're an unregulated species to hunt and do not require a hunting license. So, off we went to Oklahoma. We're fortunate enough to have access to a beautiful ranch along the Canadian River. We spend almost as much time riding around to catch glimpses of the wildlife or to visit the bison as we do hunting the pigs. When we are hunting, we start off over feeders either from stands or the backs of off-road vehicles. However, over the course of the handful of hunts that we have done here, we've learned that the various groups of pigs on the property will stop visiting the feeders once they've been shot at once or twice. When that happens, we start making our way through the grass and scrub along the river to try to flush them out or spot them on the opposite bank. This year, I was able to harvest my first pig on the first day near one of the feeders. She walked out into the lane between me and the feeder and stopped long enough to get a clean shot off. This pig weighed 105 pounds alive, and I got 37 pounds of meat packaged. The next day, I was sitting over a different feeder when a group of pigs started noisily making their way into the opening. One of them looked far larger than the others, but it was hesitant to come out from behind some trees, and the smaller pigs kept moving back and forth in front of it. I had to wait a couple minutes, but finally a shot opened up. This pig turned out to be a 246-pound sow, the largest our group had taken over the years. It was cold enough to hang her overnight after weighing her to process the next morning. When all that work was done, I had an additional 65 pounds of clean wild pork and 5 pounds of back fat and leaf fat to process into lard. She was of a size that allowed me to harvest pork belly that is thick enough to be worth turning into bacon, which we hadn't seen on any of the pigs up to this point. But that's not the only, or maybe even the best thing to do with pork belly. Cultures around the world have their own delicious ways to highlight pork belly in their dishes. One of my favorites is Chinese red braised pork. The pork belly is braised in a sweet soy liquid spiced with bay and anise until it's tender and the sauce glistens on the meat. Paired with a vegetable and rice, it makes for a hearty dinner. Every hobby provides people with some mixture of joy, creative outlet, and satisfaction. Some hobbies provide you with something you can use when you're done. Hunting, especially large game hunting, provides you with substantial food for the freezer. For this project, the 9-day trip represents almost 25% of my total goal. It's a huge boost that will allow me to comfortably keep up with where my sheet says I should be over the next couple months while we go through the early days of gardening and foraging season. These kinds of sudden and drastic inputs are not guaranteed, but my goal relies heavily on them and the success of the activities that provide for them. Additionally, I got to take a long trip with a couple good friends and contribute something positive to a local environment that we love.